Good evening. I'm Kelda Yoon. The RCMP have arrested a Toronto area man in connection with a terror investigation in Quebec near the U.S. border. They've arrested a 20-year-old Pakistani national living in Canada who was allegedly planning a deadly attack against Jews in the U.S. Philip Lee Shannock reports.
This quiet town with a population just under 4,000, now the epicenter of an international terrorism investigation. Residents say dozens of armed police showed up without warning Wednesday afternoon.
I just saw, the SWAT team vans and the army and the guys all in camouflage with the M16s and there was long rifles. Everybody had sidearms.
She says police arrested two people, a man and a woman. When she came home, both were in custody in front of her house.
A woman was handcuffed on the front porch, a young woman with long dark hair. She was very thin. And then they had a gentleman sitting on our front lawn, handcuffed behind him.
Ormstown is about an hour southwest of Montreal, near the Canada-U.S. border between Quebec and New York State. It's not far from Roxham Road, used for years by asylum seekers as a route to enter Canada from the U.S. The U.S. Department of Justice say a 20-year-old Pakistani national living in Canada was arrested. They say Mohammed Shahzeb Khan had planned to cross illegally into the U.S. and travel to New York City. They say he intended to kill Jews on the anniversary of the Hamas attack on Israel on October 7th. Witnesses say police Wednesday searched a white SUV, removing items from the vehicle. They say police did not answer any questions from residents.
They said that it was confidential and they couldn't tell me what was going on.
U.S. officials say Khan was charged with attempting to provide material support and resources to ISIS, a designated foreign terrorist organization. Philip Lee Shannock, CBC News, Toronto.
A Toronto man is facing charges for making death threats against the Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister. He was charged after posting a video on TikTok earlier this week and was released on bail today. Sarah McMillan joins us now with the details. Sarah, what can you tell us?
Well, Kelda, the man charged is named Andrew Marshall. Now, the evidence presented in today's bail hearing is covered by a routine publication ban, but CBC Toronto independently reviewed the TikTok video uploaded by Marshall earlier this week. In the nearly 11-minute profanity-laden rant, Marshall speaks about his hatred of Justin Trudeau, Chrystia Freeland, and the government in general.
Are you listening, Trudeau, Freeland, Gibbles? I hope so. Because if it was up to me, my friends, and you're not my friends, I'm just using that as a word.
And he goes on to describe in graphic detail how he would shoot them. In the video, he also disparages the media, migrants, Muslims, transgender people, and police who protect the government. Now, Marshall doesn't seem to have much of an online following, but his TikTok page is filled with anti-Muslim, anti-2S LGBTQ+, and pro-Russian content. At the start of this video, he complains that many of his videos and comments get taken down.
It's just getting ridiculous. Like, what freedom of speech do we have? None. Okay? And it's like I'm living in Nazi world Canada. It is. It's Nazis here. It's not even communist. Pure Nazi.
Now, CBC Toronto reached out to Trudeau and Freeland's offices. They did not provide comment. We also contacted Marshall's lawyer, who said Marshall has the right to freedom of speech and that he will continue to defend his client's charter rights. Now, this is just the latest arrest for threats against the Prime Minister. Last month, RCMP arrested a GTA man who also allegedly made violent threats in a video. Other recent cases include two men in Alberta who were both charged in July. In court today, Andrew Marshall was released on $500 bail. His bail conditions include not posting or commenting on content on social media, not going within 500 meters of Trudeau or Freeland, and not having any weapons or applying for any gun licenses. Kelda?
All right, thanks so much for this, Sarah. Our Sarah McMillan reporting tonight. Some residents in Markham say they are on high alert after police released a video showing the second home invasion in the city in as many days. The latest one happening Thursday morning near Kennedy and Major Mackenzie, with several suspects breaking into a home to steal car keys to a luxury car, something that's become a rising trend according to York Police. Naama Weingarten has more.
In this video released by York Police, you see the suspect's car stopping in front of a home in the area of the Bridle Walk and Castlemore Avenue in Markham. You then see 3 of the 4 suspects walk towards the house and forcing their way inside. 2 of the suspects are later seen fleeing in the victim's car, with the 3rd escaping in the car they came in, and the 4th suspect acting as the driver. This all happened around 3 a.m. on Thursday. Police say 3 of the suspects came into the home armed with a hammer and demanded the victim's car keys. They say there were 2 children and 4 adults in the house when it happened, but no injuries. The security video also shows the suspects driving past the house several times before breaking in.
Investigators do believe this was targeted. Them going into the residence, demanding the keys for the vehicle clearly shows what their intent was in this incident.
Police say the victim's vehicle is a white 2024 Mercedes-Benz, with the suspect's vehicle described as a dark 4-door sedan. This is the 2nd home invasion in Markham in the past 2 days. The previous one happening less than 10 minutes away in the area of Woodbine Avenue and Major Mackenzie Drive early Wednesday morning. Video shows the suspects pointing a gun as they demanded money from the victim. Police say they have no information that suggests the 2 invasions are connected, but they put the community on high alert.
You make sure your car is always locked. You make sure your door, front door, or even the back door is always locked. Yeah, that's what I think about that.
If compared to 10 years ago or 5 years ago, it is. It's becoming more and more bad things happening here.
We feel concerned about this news. My wife just said it's so near to our house.
Police say as carjackings continue to rise in the region, a new trend is emerging when it comes to car theft. With theft prevention technology making it harder to break into luxury vehicles, there are more incidents of people forcing their way into homes to steal the car keys or confronting the victims to get them.
My husband is worried about that, so we have the security just a few months ago because it's not safe enough.
I have no idea how to protect. I have my dog. Probably that's a kind of warning sign for the people.
No arrests have been made in either home invasion. Nama Weingarten, CBC News, Markham.
A sentencing hearing continued today for one of the 8 teenage girls accused in the 2022 death of Kenneth Lee. Today, the defense presented its arguments. The defense highlighted the teen's traumatic childhood and circumstances leading up to the swarming, where she admitted to hitting, kicking, and stomping on Lee during the attack. Now, Lee, a man experiencing homelessness, died from a stab wound to the chest shortly after being rushed to the hospital. The court heard the teen was taken at birth by Child Protection, eventually able to live with her grandmother, but faced challenges in school coping with a learning disability. The defense also stated that the teen moved to a new neighborhood with a high crime rate just a year before the swarming, and added that the teen was physically attacked at her new school and later diagnosed with PTSD. The defense is asking that her client serve no more time in custody and be sentenced to a maximum of 2 years probation, including community service. Now, the Crown, meanwhile, has asked that the girl serve 20 months in an open custody youth facility, describing her as one of the most violent in Lee's beating. Ontario is changing its funding approach to childcare operators with the hope that more will enroll in the federal $10 a day program. The changes mean that childcare centers that aren't in the national program will no longer have access to certain provincial funds, which could end up increasing fees for some parents. Dale Manukduk has more.
CBC Toronto has obtained a copy of a memo sent out last month to childcare operators. It says operators outside of the national $10 a day program who are currently receiving childcare funding for general operating, fee subsidies, or wage enhancement grants will no longer be eligible for that money as of 2025.
Ultimately, not surprising that the government's decided to focus public funding on the system where there's, a commitment from programs to lower fees for families.
The province recently announced a new funding model for childcare operators in the $10 a day program. In July, the former education minister said the plan was meant to provide stability for operators, ensuring Ontario maintains existing spaces and supports the creation of new ones.
And this is the signature program for the Trudeau government. We're going to work with them to make sure that we're creating the spaces that families are counting on.
Operators outside the program count on provincial funding, including the $2 wage enhancement for staff that's been in place since 2016. In a statement to CBC Toronto, the founder of a Toronto-based childcare center says the government is now pulling that funding straight out of our staff's pocket in an attempt to force us into a program that would quite literally bankrupt us.
If we want continuity for our children in a childcare system, we need to make sure that the foundation, which is the workers, are there. We can build all the spaces we want, but if the workers aren't there, those spaces are going to sit empty.
The province says operators outside the program can pay their staff as much as they want because they have the ability to set parent fees as high as they want to support operating costs, whereas the childcare centers in the program have to reduce fees.
Well, something has to give, right? And it's not really reasonable to expect you can get your private business publicly funded. And we're transitioning to a different kind of approach here.
When it comes to the fee subsidies meant to help low-income families, operators outside the national program will still get that money for kids currently enrolled until they age out. They won't get it for any new students starting in January. Any low-income families seeking childcare who are not in a program yet will still need to apply to their municipality to secure a placement in a national program center and will be prioritized. Dale Manukduk, CBC News, Toronto.
2 months after a student-led pro-Palestinian encampment was cleared away from the University of Toronto, many of those protesters return today. Dozens gathered in King's College Circle, equipped with the same demands for the school. Greg Ross was there.
Palestine will live forever. Palestine will live forever.
Just like they did for more than 60 days earlier this year, protesters gathered at the University of Toronto demanding the school take action against the war in Gaza.
So the plan is to continue to keep up the pressure and ensure that U of T commits to divesting from weapons manufacturers and companies complicit in Israeli apartheid.
It's the same demand made by protesters who set up an encampment that took over King's College Circle for 63 days. Back then, the school denied having investments in companies that produce weapons. Protesters say they likely won't start an encampment again, but they still plan to ensure their voices are heard.
We're going to be here the entire year, and we're going to continue to call for our demands so long as it takes for President Gertler and the administration to implement them.
We will continue to show up in whatever way we deem, and in whatever way we choose, in whatever way we feel is powerful and ensures that U of T gets the message that we're not going anywhere and that we are going to continue to demand divestment.
Palestine will be free. Palestine will be free.
Many in Toronto's Jewish community say they are concerned about some of the messages coming from these protests. They say students have raised safety concerns on campus.
It is an anti-Semitic rally because, as I said, there is a definition of anti-Semitism, and they have utilized every trope in the book just while we've stood here.
We want them to be keeping Jewish students safe. We want them to take Jewish students' concerns seriously. We want to make sure that people are educated about anti-Semitism.
A spokesperson for the university said while the U of T welcomes vigorous debate and protest, the school has robust community safety resources to ensure a safe campus experience for all community members. The school also pointed to long-standing policies surrounding protests on campus.
It's an Orwellian farce. It's absolutely draconian. The university is trying to ban chalk, tents, structures, megaphones, paint, markers. These are all indispensable tools for protesting. They're a part of our fundamental right for free speech.
We're hopeful that this year they will actually enforce their policies because we recognize that harassment, whether it's anti-Semitic or it's any other type of harassment of a student, is not acceptable.
Brick by brick, wall by wall.
The school says it is prepared to enforce guidelines if protesters defy a court injunction prohibiting them from occupying school property overnight. Greg Ross, CBC News.
Welcome back. 5 people were taken to hospital after a crash in East York this morning. Police say they've arrested a man in his 30s for impaired driving. This was the scene near O'Connor and Pape. Witnesses say a white pickup truck was parked on Pape, north of O'Connor, when a Mercedes traveling southbound crashed into the back of the truck. Paramedics transported 3 people to hospital with serious injuries and 2 with minor injuries. The man driving the Benz has been charged and is in custody in hospital. We're learning more today about the victim of a fatal collision in Etobicoke last month. The victim, a 26-year-old cyclist, is being identified through a GoFundMe as Navjot Kaur. She was struck in the area of Burnhamthorpe Road and Kipling Avenue on August 24th and died a week later. Officers said the woman was riding her bike westbound when a man driving a Volkswagen Jetta in the same direction struck her. No charges have been laid. The latest data from Toronto Police reveals more people have died on our roads so far this year than by this time last year. 30 people have been killed in collisions, and that's despite a record investment this year in the city's road safety strategy. Clara Pasica has more.
Cyclists, pedestrians and motorists move through the newly redesigned Bloor and St. George intersection.
Well, as a cyclist who's been riding around since the 1980s, this is a big improvement. I haven't really had a lot of time to really assess it, but there's a lot of space for cyclists. So there's a lot of space to move around. It's pretty well marked. I think I like it.
Changes aim to better protect cyclists from being clipped by a motorist turning too quickly. It's part of the city's goal put in place in 2016 to achieve zero road fatalities by redesigning streets to make them safer, a goal the city is far from achieving this year.
This has been the deadliest year so far for people on bikes since Toronto's been counting these stats with the Vision Zero program.
6 cyclists died on Toronto roads in 2024, according to the latest police data, and 12 pedestrians, 8 motorists, and 4 motorcyclists were also killed.
There are things the city can be doing to eliminating these deaths, and unfortunately we're not doing them nearly fast enough.
The budget for Vision Zero at $79 million this year is the highest since the strategy began. The city's Vision Zero manager says crews have been busy building more bike infrastructure from bike lanes to protected intersections.
In terms of the cyclist fatalities that we've seen this year, the numbers are quite concerning. They're quite unexpected compared to the numbers we've seen over the past many years. We were continuing to look at, is this indicative of a major shift in something that we need to be aware of?
Experts say many parts of Scarborough, North York and Etobicoke are particularly dangerous for vulnerable road users.
That people fundamentally are still driving too fast. The infrastructure is still designed in a way that actually promotes people driving quickly.
He wants to see more solutions put into action with haste.
It's changing some of the turn radiuses. It's putting these bullnose protrusions on the curbs to actually narrow the distance that pedestrians have to get from one side to the other of the intersection. There's all sorts of interventions. There's no one silver bullet. It has to be a whole systemic approach.
The city says it is moving as quickly as it can, including using temporary measures where safety issues are most urgent to stop fatality numbers from climbing even higher.
The Vision Zero program is about getting to zero, and we won't stop working until we are at zero.
Clara Pasica, CBC News, Toronto.
And finally tonight, day 2 of the Toronto International Film Festival is now in the books, and it ended on a high note for music fans. Elton John, Never Too Late, had its world premiere with the musical icon himself hitting the red carpet. Our Magda Gabriselassie was there.
Sir Elton John, his husband, Canadian David Furnish, and RJ Cutler are all smiles on the red carpet as their documentary, Never Too Late, has its world premiere. Now, John's touring days are over, but this documentary was a chance for the musical icon to look back at his career and pull the curtain back on his personal life. Cutler and Furnish co-directed this project, and of course, for Furnish, Elton John's husband, this was a very personal experience. Take a listen.
It was very emotional. Yeah, I found it quite emotional at times because it is so personal. The film touches me in many, many different ways. And some of the things Elton says on screen when he's being very honest and very personal, actually I find quite upsetting because he's addressing his own mortality in parts of the film, and that's just something I don't want to think about. And so it was a challenge, but it was also a joy.
Now, we didn't get a chance to talk to Elton John on the red carpet. After he took a few pictures, he did leave, but I got a chance to ask his husband what he thought about the documentary. Take a listen.
He thought it was absolutely spot on. He said, that's the real me. And then being someone who doesn't like to look at himself, he said, I don't think I can see it again.
Thank you so much.
Cuts too close.
Now, unfortunately, we the press were not able to screen this film before tonight, but there are several screenings throughout this festival. Magda Gabriselassie, CBC News, Toronto.
All right, let's go to Chris Potter now with a check on your forecast. And Chris, looking like it's going to be jacket weather for the most part this weekend?
Yeah, it's set to be cooler than normal and a little unsettled. We have a chance of wet weather each day all the way through Monday. But after that, high pressure builds in and it's going to stick around for a number of days. So we just kind of have to get through this weekend. Normal daytime high for this time of year is around 23. Normal overnight low is around 11. That's where we're likely going to drop and hold at through the overnight. But tomorrow's daytime highs will be noticeably cooler than today's, which we were seasonable. 23 in the city of Toronto. Windsor was at 22, 22 as well in Ottawa. Dealing with some rainfall, our cold front. You can kind of see that line edging down from the northeast to the southwest as that cold front picks up a little bit more moisture, moving across the Lake Erie rather into Niagara. We're going to see that especially on the east end of the city through the overnight, but it will be clearing well off towards the east before daybreak tomorrow. Mostly cloud cover for the morning. We should remain dry into the afternoon, although it's not going to be continuous. Little showers will migrate in from Georgian Bay in towards the GTA. It should be light in nature, so it's going to be unsettled, but far, far, far from a washout. Very similar setup as we get through Saturday night and into Sunday. We'll start off with mostly sunshine, at least early in the morning, and then we get another wave of showers passing through primarily midday, so mid to late morning, possibly the early afternoon. Then we dry out again. Temperatures will be a little bit better on Sunday compared to tomorrow's daytime highs, and we'll continue that climb into Monday and beyond as well. Monday, it looks like we'll start the day with a little bit of rainfall, at least early in the morning, kind of moves in through the overnight. For the afternoon, we might see these leftover isolated showers, but nothing significant. Almost most areas will be dry, starting to see a lot more sunshine as well by day's end. Overnight lows will basically be around 11 degrees in Toronto, 10 through Windsor, mid-teens possible in Ottawa, but then it cools off dramatically because once again the northwesterly winds are moving in, and that will once again trigger the cool down, but also those lake effect showers that will be on and off in nature through the weekend. So it's only a slight chance each and every day. Tomorrow's overnight low will be around 8 degrees, 19 for Sunday, 23 for Monday, so we are stepping up and will continue to gradually climb Tuesday and Wednesday with lots of sun, daytime highs in the mid-20s, and after that, Kelda, Thursday, Friday, maybe even Saturday and Sunday will feature lots of sunshine, daytime highs possibly in the high 20s.
That's what I like to hear. Thanks so much.